It's a tensegrity structure. It was my great good fortune to work and study with Buckminster Fuller early in my life before I became a body worker. And he was the fellow who developed the geometry. Kenneth Snelson, the artist, first started making these kinds of structures. What I'd like you to notice about these is that the dowels, the bones of this structure, if you will, are floating in space, and they are held in space by the balance of the elastics, the muscles and the fascia, the myofascia, if we were doing an analogy to the body. So these structures, we're not used to looking at structures like this. This is similar to a balloon, maybe. But otherwise, we're used to structures that are continuous compression, like houses. So we structured our body as if it were a continuous compression structure too. We think the head sits on the neck and the head and the neck sit on the torso, and that it's like a stack of bricks all the way down to the ground. But in fact, the bones, well, at least we could consider it this way, the bones float inside the soft tissue. And when you start seeing the body this way, you see a lot of things. You see how the problem in the hip can really be founded in the arch, that the problem in this side of the neck is down at the bottom of the rib cage on the other side, because you start seeing how the interrelationships of things start working in the body. So Ida Rolf used to say, where you think it is, it ain't. And this tensegrity gives you a model where you can see, oh, if this pulls over here because the whole structure gives into it, the pain might be over here somewhere. And we're looking for ways of modeling this that would be predictive, so that we could say, okay, if you have this kind of problem, then we should look in specific places to help sort that. But this kind of model for the body really has a whole new way of thinking about ourselves that is not the usual muscles on the bones kind of model.
So this concept of tensegrity is defined as tension with integrity, maximizing the effectiveness of not only compressive forces, but expansive forces as well, finding that ideal tension state. So all the way down to the cellular level, what chiropractic does for the body is finds this ideal tension state for every single cell, tissue, and organ system in the body. Meaning that we have to have tension in order to create movements, mobility and stability. You guys have heard it that way as well. And as you just saw from this video, what's very, very powerful about this is the spine is the root system for the entire plant of our body, okay? That trunk of the tree before it gets to the branches. And it's why when people come in with wrist issues, shoulder issues, it's another explainer of how we can affect that through the spine. It's another reason why upper cervical practitioners are able to only adjust up here, but affect the tensegrity structure that goes all the way down to the pelvis and the low back. Now, why is this concept so important when it comes to chiropractic care? A lot of people have previous traumas, such as car accidents, that they never get addressed. If you ever played sports in high school and you never got those traumas addressed, like football, rugby, lacrosse, soccer, those are very intensive sports. Any sort of whiplash injury, horseback riding, a parachute accident, you may not feel the pain anymore because the brain and the body has mapped a way to ensure that you can survive and do everything that you need to, even with the previous trauma. And this is also why when people are undergoing their first couple experiences with chiropractic care, old injury patterns can show up because it gets stored in the myofascial system. If you injure anything from the toe or fingers, it can have a ripple effect on the entire body, including the spine. And this is why it's important for practitioners to be able to look at every single piece of your structure, but we need to look at the nervous system and the spine first, so that we can address the branches going into the extremities as well. Now, the concept on a cellular level and what that looks like. When there's too much space for a cell, it replicates more and more and more. And on a very, very extreme side of this, that's what most people call tumors, right? Uncharacterized growth through a mutation period, okay? That's somehow defined in science. But if a cell doesn't have enough space, if it's running out of space, it goes through a process called apoptosis, where it literally will kill off the cells around it or itself to ensure that the rest of the organism can survive. Now imagine that on a global scale, if we have compressive forces that are too much compression. Now what this looks like in the body, if you have forward head posture like so, and you're creating tension and compression in certain areas, what the body will do is lay down bone to help stabilize that area, and you run out of range of motion. This is one reason why people that get adjusted for the first time in a very long time and undergo chiropractic care notice that they can look at their blind spot easier. We have a couple patients in the clinic this week that were able to tell me they noticed a difference when they were driving, and they were able to not just look back but rotate back more. So it's really cool about this in terms of the thoughts, the traumas, and the toxins. The three things that cause subluxation in the body is this fascia that our bones are floating in, as described by Thomas Myers in the video that you just saw, is also surrounding all of our organs. Now imagine, picture with me, that if your stomach is contracting too much because of a gut dysfunction, things like hiatal hernia, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, all of this other stuff, the fascia around that organ tightens up. And what happens is not only does the nerve going to that organ have some sort of dysfunction that needs to be addressed in the spinal cord system, but this is also how organ relationships can truly affect the entire way that your body is designed. This is another reason why when you are assuming a posture and there's a lot of negativity in your life, that myofascial pattern can also create dis-ease in the gut and in the spine itself. So we always have to look at this triad of health and see what is creating these distortions in the myofascial system, and how do we keep it more fluid. We are over 85% water, and the way that that water moves and interacts with the rest of our structures is vital for life. I always make this analogy to people on the tables when they ask, but would you rather have a drink from a pond or from a river? And if you answered pond, I'm interested to see why, because if you look at a pond, you can see the amount of bacteria and fungi and disease processes that might be on top of that water, right? That water isn't clean and flowing. You would rather drink from a river, even though it could be the same water. The body's the same way. If we're over 85% water, the more stagnant we are, the more we are like a pond. The more we're able to move and interact with our environment, the more we are like a river.